Okay, it's Sunday the 15th of March 2020. So the radio, I listened to Stephen Nolan yesterday for a couple of hours. He was on twice. I think he was on 3 till 6 and then 8. I'm not too sure if he went to 11 or he went through to his normal finish at 1 o'clock. I thought he was very reassuring. He's got a calm manner about him. Some poor woman in her 70s phoned up and she was hyper and she had wanted to hug her son and stuff, and she had told him not to, and she was getting herself all flustered and stuff like that. And I thought he did, and he handled it very well. And he said to the woman, I'll phone you and we'll have a chat each weekend for the next few weekends till this thing kind of gets over and stuff like that. And that calmed her right down. And it's a good strategy anyway. What it does is it transfers people's fixations. And it moves the fixation from the bat flu to expecting the call the next week from Stephen and Nolan. And I've just been listening to Ian Dale on LBC, and he's similarly just talked a guy down from the rooftops. Guy was expecting a heart operation, and his wife works in the city and his kids got asthma at school. Ian Dale says, well, maybe the best thing is you self-isolate and bring your wife and child in with it. And that sounded pretty good advice. And the guy, he gave the guy some action points, and the guy seized upon them. Yes, that's what I'll do. I've got to. That's clarified it. Couldn't sleep, and now it's pretty good. But let's look at the news, and to me, this is just we're getting Princess Diana pandemonium breaking out, and it'll take 2 or 3 weeks for it to subside. The annoying thing is that a lot of these things that are starting to be said now seem to be more political than medical, especially the attacks on Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Unbelievable. We've got people ranting and raving as though they are experts in telling, well, we should shut the schools down, shut this down, shut that down. What people don't seem to realise is the herd immunity. For the herd to get immunity, the well parts of the herd, the young parts of the herd, need to get infected so that they can get immunity. Once it gets above 40 or 50% of the herd being immune, the chances of the other parts of the herd contacting in getting the bat flu is reduced severely. Anyway, let's walk our way through here. One of the things that jumps out is this panic buying has left some supermarkets in the UK with empty shelves. Well, it's not like I told you so, but I told you so. I told our Bobs and I told Derek, and Derek didn't. He went out and got tins. Our Bob poo-pooed it, but she's got 2 freezers full of stuff. But you'll be quite surprised how quickly you go through food if you've got to be stuck in the house for two weeks or so. Anyway, this is a supermarket, right? And this is I think it's in North London. So look at this. Place is wrecked. Toilet roll. Pasta. That's what happens. People aren't all in it together and never have been and never will be. But when push comes to shove and somebody shouts fire, this is what you get. And I'm not saying somebody's shouting fire, but what can you say? So back to the news. Virus isolation, coronavirus, the bat flu, isolation for over 70s within weeks. I'm not too sure how that will be enforced. Every Briton over the age of 70 will be told within the coming weeks to stay at home for an extended period to shield them from the bat flu. He told the BBC, not come into force, but when it does, it will last a very long time. So what we're talking about, 5 weeks, 10 weeks, 16 weeks. All the deaths so far have been of people over 60 with underlying conditions. Now, the death rate went up to 20 or 21, I think it was yesterday, and they announced at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon each day. Yesterday in the UK, on average, 2,000 people would have died of other things, old age, underlying complaints, heart attacks, whatever. 2,000 people yesterday died. Approximately 2,000 people today will die, and 2,000 people tomorrow will die. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday, that's 8,000 people will die. Now, the bat flu, 20 or 30 will have died. 8,000, 20 or 30. The normal flu kills thousands of people over the winter time each year. It tends to be a culling of older people disadvantaged by health things. And I'm amazed when I listen to the radio now how many of the people have got these things. But most of them just don't. Either they're relying on like Facebook and stuff like that, where pandemonium and stuff is just rampant, and not listening to what the government is saying. And what the government is saying is to get herd immunity, the stronger parts of the herd need to be exposed to it. They need to have 3 or 4 days flu, and then they can go back and the country can go on. Anyway, the whole world seems to be shutting down. Spain, blocking all the flights and stuff like that. So what we've got here, looking at what we're looking at here now. Sunday Express, now over 70s face stay-at-home order. Did it ask shoppers to be considered by supermarkets? PM orders, ventilators. There's a guy on the radio saying, should have done this weeks ago and stuff like that. You can only react when you know the size of the problem and stuff like that. And they were trying to contain it, and that's where the bulk of the effort was going. So what we got are the Sunday Telegraph, looking after your grandparents, coping with self-isolation, and how to protect your finances. PM puts industry on war footing to equip the NHS for battle ahead. Retool factories to make thousands of respirators. Boris Johnson urges manufacturers as pandemic intensifies. Yes, if they could make a simple respirator, I don't think it's beyond anybody. But you've got to remember, these private companies, the only way that would realistically happen is if the government put in an order and said, yeah, we'll buy 10,000 of these things off you. She's walking around with a surgical mask on, and our pal is probably walking around with hers. Travel nightmare after Trump bans all flights from Britain. Yeah, President Trump has banned all the flights from Britain now. But he's given two days notice on that. The Spanish stopped them all, and it's just announced this morning Austria is. It's war 8,000 private hospital beds will be used to relieve pressure on the NHS battles the bat flu. Army chiefs are planning to deploy thousands of military police on the streets in the event of civil unrest and to use the armed forces to guard overcrowded prisons and erect field hospitals. So Edouard Philippe, the Froggy Prime Minister, ordered the closure of restaurants, bars, cinemas, nightclubs. All shops were also shut except for food stores, pharmacies, banks. He asked people, stay at home! Yeah. The move to launch shielding of the elderly and infirm and whole family isolation is an escalation since Thursday. Look, this is just panic control gone completely off the scale here. Steve Nolan did this, and the figures, there was like 65 million people, and he said, okay, what if 50% of the people get it? That's 32 million. And if there was 30 million, let's take it down to 30. And if we say 5% of that and 1% of that, and blah, blah, blah. And it ends up with like 500,000 people dead. I tend not to think that it's going to go that high. If it goes that high, then I'm completely wrong on this. But I think this pandemonium which is happening now is overblown. And I think people don't realise what they're actually asking to happen. It's just political. It's nothing to do with the health thing. And that's my viewpoint. And I think in perhaps 3 to 4 weeks, certainly in 6 months' time, people will look back at this and say, what was the lunacy? What was everybody going crazy about? And hopefully not too many people will have died. Some people will. That's the unfortunate thing in stuff like that. But most people won't. But I'm only partway through, so I'll hang 5.